Hey,
How are you?
it's just one of those things where it's like, of course, today we get an issue that we've never had before.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's the thing with this format, but glad we sorted it out and glad to have you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for being here as well. I'm pretty sure everyone knows Amber already, but I'll go over their bio and then Amber will take us to a studio visit of what they have been working on, what they are looking forward to showing. I know you have a show coming up, Amber, so maybe we touch upon that. And in the end, you have time to ask questions. And if any questions come up, please drop them in the chat and I'll save them for later.
Good.
So without further ado, I'll read your bio and copy paste it in the chat as well for everyone. So Amber Imrie is an artist, curator, and educator. They were born and raised off the grid in the Ozark Mountains of northwestern Arkansas. Largely homeschooled throughout their childhood, Amber attended school for 3 years before testing out at age 16. Amber has a BA with honors from UC Berkeley and was awarded Excellence in Sculpture upon graduating. Amber has an MFA from Stanford University and was awarded the Anita Squares Fowler Award in Photography. From 2014 to 2017, Amber founded and was curator of Venison Magazine, an online contemporary art magazine, and Camp Venison, an art micro-residency. Amber has been an artist in residence and exhibited work nationally and internationally. Imrie was awarded the Murphy Cadogan Award in 2017 and to foster the exploration of her artistic potential in hybrid practice. Amber became a founding member of TAAS in 2020, and since 2021, Amber has served on several jury panels for fellowship and exhibition open calls. And in 2023, Amber was awarded the Creative Exchange Fund Spectre Grant as a curator/artist, the Artist 360 Practicing Artist Grant, and was invited to speak on a curator panel. Sorry, my voice is cracking. At the ARPO International Art Fair in Bogota, Colombia, and at the Expo in Chicago, USA. So yes,
Yeah.
welcome, Amber.
The bio
Yes,
always
please.
needs updating. It's like something that always comes back to you being like, hey, work on this again.
Yes.
So full disclosure, I didn't get a chance to watch one of these before being in one because I've been doing the show that I've been doing. So just direct me of what I'm ready to screen share. I can just kind of like dive into like where I've been in the studio, but I wanted to like just open it up that like folks can like jump in with questions in the chat, and you as well, Dora, if you want to like direct me in different ways, please do.
Yes.
Should I just dive in then?
Yes, please start screen sharing.
And can we see it if we go to slideshow mode?
I can see your slide.
You can see my slides. Okay, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. It's a studio visit. So I started off the studio like prepping for this morning by asking ChatGPT after everything that I've been developing with the show in connection with my conversations between ChatGPT as a way of accessing my archive of information. I thought it was highly relevant to ask it for its opinion on how I would structure a studio visit. And so it suggested I start with my context and origin story, which I thought was quite illuminative because I really forgot to, bring us into this, because I feel like when you're making a body of work, I think that there is certain like grounding information that gets really forgotten that you have to tell people, because it's becomes such just a passing by of being in the work, And so I want to just start off by saying that I'm born and raised in the Ozarks. The the Ozarks are called the Ozark Mountains. You'll hear me say the Ozark Mountains, but they're not a system of mountains. We are dressed up in what I call linguistic drag and referred to as being mountains with mountain culture, but we're actually an ancient seabed that is eroded into a system of valleys by water over thousands and thousands of years. And so growing up as a queer person in this place, nestled in queer communities and a queer outposting that started in like the 60s and 70s with the Back to Land movement, started to create this larger population of queer people in this corner of Arkansas in the Ozarks. And it was like through this kind of realizing that my place of origin was misnaming itself and was also erasing its queer histories and its queer presence. So I recently found out that the very first recorded drag show that happened in America, point blank, happened in the Ozarks. And so we have been like a hotbed of other cultures and queer people since westward expansion. That's kind of when it started. Is we had a lot of freaks and geeks come to the Ozarks during that expansion because the land was cheaper here than everywhere else. So if you were a minority, or you didn't have much money, or you were an interracial family, or you didn't follow Christianity, you might find yourself settling in the Ozarks, where it was easier to like find your own little holler and find isolation to be your authentic self. So this is very much the region in which I'm talking about, but this isn't a region that is well identified in this way to other people, but this is like the hidden history that exists here. And in this body of work, I was seeing a lot of resonance between the actual creation of this landscape and the cultural creation of this landscape. And so this seabed being carved into mountains by water, carved into valleys, are revealing these hidden histories, right? They're revealing things that have been like hidden away in the strata, histories that are forgotten, and thinking about geological time in connection with human time. So this work has been coming out in a lot of different ways. And also, please excuse all my photography. This is shot on my phone this morning. Not professional photographs.
It looks good.
It's not easy to photograph photographs that are printed onto textiles again and have them be like they are in person. But this is a work that I did. This is actually a piece that kind of exists as two pieces. There's one version of this that is about 24 inches across, and it has 12 gold crosses stitched onto it. And this one is 44 inches across, so it's almost twice the size, and it has 13 gold crosses on it. So I created them slightly different so they could kind of be this conversation about the 13th cross and what I was kind of referring to in that way. And it's a reference to 13 months being actually in alignment with our calendar year and the amount of days happening, and that we've basically positioned the 13 as this number of witchcraft, and through that we're kind of like creating this culture around the number of 12, where it doesn't ever quite fit because we're ignoring this 13th, right? And so it's this another moment where there is something that is evident, something that exists, something that is natural, that is being ignored because it isn't convenient. And so I was really thinking about those crosses when I came to this piece versus the 12 cross piece, but both of them essentially is looking at the landscape and the way that humidity is a way of referencing this water, of the way that water is existing in this place. So I should say that like the metaphor that I really like sunk into from relating this landscape and the building up of this landscape to the building up of our culture is relating queerness and soft power and queer power to the persistence of water, that it is not loud, it does not demand, but it is persistent and ever present. And in the South, we have like humidity is such a huge part of our life here. And so reminding people that humidity is water and that you breathe in queerness, and queerness is a part of your culture, be you aware of it or not. It is ever present and always around you here. So I want to show you a little bit of my embodied research of like, how am I getting to this work and why has this work changed in tone and in sensitivity since I returned to living and being gay in the Ozarks versus coming from here and not, you know, being situated in here. And so I wanted to just grab this little screenshot of some of these moments of my life. And when I'm experiencing these moments of life, I'm literally going like, this is my art, but I cannot allow myself to step out of it and be an observer because I need to experience it fully and live that art. And so this is a picnic that we do at Easter, where we go around to all these different waterfalls and bluffs, and we have this decadent picnic. There was a lemon meringue pie. We dress up. We're very eccentric. And our experience out here is we're just having an absolute blast with our own party in our, you know, makeshift third space. And we get to experience all these hicks and rednecks and other people living in our area come and experience us up on these, you know, waterfalls and stuff, just to wonder of this spectacle alongside this natural spectacle. And then on the right, I included just a picture of me walking barefoot in water. This became an exercise that I continue to do while making this work, and looking at barefoot culture and the hierarchy around where is deemed to be a respectable place to live or culturally important, or where you should be if you're smart, or all of these ideas that we have around the stigma of the South. Being related to the barefoot being this uncivilized being, right? And like, how is that just a rejection of colonialism? And how can we learn something through going barefoot again? This is another kind of picture of some of my embodied research of, on the left here, we have sage, which you guys all probably know is used in a lot of different spiritual practices for cleansing purposes. Right on top of this sage, you'll notice this small piece of wood. This is a cedar, and it's a local cedar. It's a tree that lives here. It's actually not even a cedar, but we call it cedar. I'm not going to go into it. It's a long story, but it's actually our local version of sage. So Ozark witchcraft developed through a bringing together of Christianity, European paganism, and Muskogee and Cherokee religions. And those are the four kind of main points they can situate of where this religion developed from. And it developed in this region during the land grab movement because of all these outsiders who moved here. They all kept marrying and intermingling and trading their healing and spiritual practices with each other. And so I've been really like following and getting into this spiritual practice and how it uniquely connects to this landscape, like burning cedar to cleanse your space instead of sage, because cedar is local and you can walk out and get it, and sage you'd have to buy or like go to the desert to get. So, and then on the right, I want to just show like the experiments with nature that I do. So this is these little flowers turn into burrs that get stuck in my dog's hair, and I spend hours untangling them out of my dog's hair. And so every spring, now that I know that these little flowers turn into burrs, I walk around my property and I pick the flowers every spring, but there's only like a week and a half I can get them before they're burrs. But it becomes this ritualized practice of like this negotiation with landscape and life, and this transformation of something beautiful into something that's like really annoying and difficult. These are moments that, like, while they might not seem obvious to be very important to the ways that I'm approaching this work, it really embodies the lived experience that I'm transmuting into the physical works. So this year, holy stones became very important to this practice. Early on in the year, about this time last year, on the left here, we see this big holy stone. And I found this stone the year before, and it had been only like my second holy stone that I had really found. And it was such a big hole in the middle and like so prominent. I really just like fell in love with it, and I decided to get it tattooed on my arm. And I have it now. I don't know if you can see me. I can't see any of you. And so after I got that stone tattooed on me, they started coming up in my life a lot. So all the stones you see here are holy stones, and I've now found around 85 this year. And partially this has to do with me paying more attention to them and like going and looking for them. But there was definitely this calling in this beginning of, you know, finding this one stone, getting it, and then them starting to appear in my life rapidly afterwards. holy stones or hag stones are used as tools in Ozark witchcraft. They're seen as being, you can do several things with them. They can bless things that you pass through the holes, and they can also be used as viewing glasses, as like to see the truth, or to see fairies is one of the things that is rumored to say you can see through hagstones. And we have a lot of them in this area because of the way that the landscape has been eroded by water. This creates what is called a karst topography. And so we have an immense amount of caves, underground springs, and lakes in this region, and stones. We are the second biggest cave system in the entire world. And so lots of holy stones. We got holy stones on our right, and then, you know, shot of the creek and me and Stella out collecting holy stones. As I say, they are something that's calls to me. And then on the left, I wanted to include some more of this embodied research, the way that I'm grabbing it. So this is a photograph of the table after an evening of hooking up with another woman in this Ozark rural region. This other woman was raised in rural Ozarks. She was raised Catholic, and our conversations around religion and tarot and queerness and nature. This was kind of like just that table the morning after of like where the conversation had gone between these books and these tarot cards and these beverages, and then the clothes cascaded on the floor. And when I woke up and I saw this the next morning, the first thing I thought of was Tracy Emin's The Bed piece. And I just was like, oh, if I ever did a response to any piece that was being made, it would be this little table of queerness, because when I look at Tracy Emin's bed, it rings as a heteronormative bed to me. And I would just love to see what a lesbian bed or what a gay man's bed would really look like in contrast to Tracy Emin's bed, which I think Tracy is queer, if I remember her tent, but it wasn't evident in that bed piece. Anyways, this was kind of the first piece, though I don't know if this is really a piece. I called it Turning My Heart to Water. It was more a work in progress kind of pause point as I was at the Slit in Los Angeles doing a artist in residency while I had an exhibition there. And so I played around on this table with a lot of fragments of this work as it was developing. And it was actually here that the first pieces got started, and also the work and entire plan for the series massively changed. I brought 2 like 9-foot waterfalls I had printed to this space to work on them with the plan that they would be in this exhibition, and they're not at all in this exhibition. And so the stacking of these stones and the integration with the chiffon textiles ended up becoming a larger part of the exhibition, because I allowed myself to continue to reiterate and work on this and question myself as I got closer and closer to my deadline, which is why I'm still finishing works a week out from install. But I think that they're okay, so the next is kind of going more into why am I letting these works continue to reiterate themselves, and my work of integrating all of this in ChatGPT. Like I said at the beginning, I have been working closely with AI in creating this exhibition. It allows me a kind of mirror, somebody who I have this chat thread that I've been working on now for about 7 months, and I have educated this version of ChatGPT in my work from my past, a lot of my writing, and a lot of other things. And we've had a lot of discussions, everything from emotional support as I date, to researching the Bible and rewriting biblical text, pulling together different experiments, project timelining, and working with the written word. And so one of the ways I've been using ChatGPT is to brainstorm and workshop text. And so I'm going to read these 2 poems. There's 3, but the third one's changing, of course. So I won't read that today, but I'll read these 2. And then we'll go into the bodies of work. And I think that will kind of show you how all of this is linking together. Okay, so the first poem is The Year My Heart Turned to Water, which is also the name of my exhibition. Okay. The year my heart turned to water, I learned of love's exclamation, how water carves itself into stone, not out of fury, but devotion. Each ripple a prayer, each drip a hymn of patience, wearing away the jagged edges until only your curves remain. The year my heart turned to water, the valleys unbuttoned their blouses, slopes soft with moss led to rivers spilling over like laughter breaking from a bubbling spring. I was soil in sediment, layered and laid bare, split open like a cavern to let the light and rain in. The year my heart turned to water, the forest floor quilted itself anew. Oak leaves stitched with gold threads of dawn, fallen pine needles etched veins into the earth's skin, and I stretched out. Skin to skin we laid. My heart seeped through our porous divide, and your roots drank deep. Their thirst pulling me under until I bloomed with the weight of the rain. The year my heart turned to water, a secret slipped between us. A surrender in the undertone, and our edges loosened as the current rewrote us. To heal a heart is to offer her to the river and let her drown and reemerge. Her hardness dissolves to carry her song downstream. Water is not hurried, does not demand, but seduces even stone to let go. And then the other poem is called The Shadow. They are two boulders at the edge of a lake, shaped by the same erosion. A shadow grows in the hollow between them, as if it's remembering what's fossilized in their strata. A tremor travels through the sediment, and they tilt, not to reach, but to share the illusion of it, a mirage-made muscle. But I demand, and so she lets it wiggle, small and slick through the seam she'd sworn shut. It threaded itself between memory and reflex, repeating what once passed for care, a pattern smoothed by a clever tongue, sharp as a river stone turned in the mouth. But I demand, and so she let it wiggle. Through the tight-lipped ceremony of withholding, she perched at the edge of a way-worn path, watching for language to arrive where gesture failed. But I demand, and so she let it wiggle. Not from desire, but from recognition, the way certain silences start to feel like home. The air thick with everything she folded into stillness, it hovered, humid and holy, just as I demanded. But then she steps from her perch, slipping her toes beneath the surface where the stream runs stagnant. Sediment parts around her ankles, roots blushing at the touch of her skin. The moon rises, the shadow shifts. So those two poems came out of a lot of conversations, and both of them speak about the journey, my personal own autobiographical journey of being queer in the South, but it is using the landscape as a way of coding it into a more shared experience of what is the tempo of being queer in the South. And so there is a huge resonance between us in the natural landscape. The roads, the country roads become part of our third spaces. The creeks and rivers and swimming holes become our bars and where we take dates. If you want to go take a girl out and be able to kiss her, it's highly more likely you will take her on a picnic than to a restaurant. And so the isolation and solitude and queer acceptance of our natural space is a safe space for many of us. And so I really wanted to talk about falling in love with myself as a falling in love with the land and relating that to falling in love with a woman. So this piece was the very first piece that got the furthest along. And it's playing with the actual text that came out of one of those poems. So this is an image shot with two different focal depths. And then one of the focal depths is the letters that are cut out. And then the other focal depth is the image in focus at distance. And you see this mist lifting off the mountains and this pond in the middle, two different metaphors for the way that queerness can rest in rural spaces. And it says on it there, their thirst pulling me under until I bloomed. This is another piece that pulls from the same poem called Surrender in the Undertow. It's an image of a degrading road and a rushing river that I wove together. This piece is called Saint Stella, and it's the first that I made using a faster process. I've been trying to find ways of quickening my pace in my practice to be able to, one, make more work that I want to make, and two, be able to, you know, iterate or to make versions or kind of think through ideas quicker. So a piece that is about this size, 44 inches, used to take me about a month to do. And this took me a week and a half. And so here's some close-ups. I'm using the sewing machine on this and not hand stitching, which is the biggest time differential, where if you look back at Surrender and Undertow, that's all hand stitched into place. So it's a bit different of a methodology, but I'm really enjoying working with it. And so I made another piece in line with that called Watching the Line. You'll notice fishing comes up a lot in this work. I both reference it in visuals, and there are a lot of references in the poems to fishing. Not only is it referencing particular memories and people who fish for me in my own life, but it's relating the act of fishing to the act of dating, of casting lines out, them going beneath the surface, there being this ambiguity and this sense of control. And so I'm relating to fishing as kind of like, one, talking about power and control, also talking about what's hidden and what's on the surface. And then also like, yeah, what is it like to feel like a fish in a swimming hole where your network is very small, right? You keep going around and around in circles, and then you have these lines casted out. So it's kind of talking to that environment.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. And of course, I mean, for me that who learned English a little bit older, we start by learning different, I don't know, everyday phrases. And there's plenty fish in the sea. There's a dating app called Plenty of Fish. So that's where my mind also went towards.
It's not just me. This is the thing, is like sometimes you get so far into working like this, you're like, oh yes, there was that information way back there that I forgot.
Yes. That's in the back of your brain.
Yeah, it's mushy right now. Okay, so this is two more pieces. On the left is these two waterfalls that I wove together into this piece that I see it as being very sensual. I'm not sure what other people see, but I then started doing these kind of abstractions. So on our right is offcuts from the piece Their Thirst that we saw earlier. This is called Mapping Ridges, which was originally a part of a line of that poem, but I have since edited that poem and it's no longer in there, but I'm keeping the phrase as a title. But I wanted to experiment with these kind of more abstract pieces as like what is abstracted and what is absent has become really important, because if we're talking about erosion, we're talking about like what is created by what is removed, there's also an interest in what is removed and not just the whole and the absence of what it is. So there's this tension between absence and presence, where is there the absence or presence of the queer body or the absence and presence of that space. And so I started to move into working with this discarded and fragmented pieces from my studio and start to rework them into like more abstract pieces that I think still talk about the sensitivities of the other work, but allow them to exist in this other way. So these are all, again, please excuse all these photographs. This will not be displayed on a black top. They will be on a white pedestal. So the contrast between these little pillows and the sculptures will be a lot less. But I started this series of sculptures that kind of came out late in the game of making this exhibition. Of course, I didn't need to fill this space at all, but I've now made 5 sculptures. So these are 5 sculptures that are all modeled off of the game of skipping stones. And it's relating skipping stones to trying to date and kind of nothing really taking off or leading to anything that is fruitful. And so all of the titles kind of refer to these different missed moments or collisions or being wrapped up in something. And so this is called Carried by Shimmers. And this is the silence that squeezed the surface. And they're all made from water camo. Like I've been making this camouflage off of water photographs that I take, and then printing that onto chiffon, and then using stones that I find at the river and making these little bases that kind of, I hope, kind of nudge at religious pillows and other like creating like yeah, little pillows for precious objects is kind of what I was thinking with them. But a lot of like the gold thread and the silver thread, it's kind of through the whole exhibition of how can I like utilize gold and silver as tapping at not only religious iconography, but also like what do we deem as being precious? Because a lot of what I'm pulling in here is things that people would just really disregard. And I'm going, no, this is something that's vital and important. And so this is called Kissing the Velvet Slit. And it has this little fossil in the middle. And this is called Taking in the Current's Mouth. It's kind of hard to see in these photographs, but it's a more complex chiffon and stone sculpture where there's several different stones involved. There's a translucency with this silver rope that I made, and like some queerness of like, you can kind of see in this picture, but like more in person, you can see these kind of like almost two penises, kind of very genitalia like play with the textiles and mimicking a water fountain. Here's some just in process shots of this piece called And She Let It Wiggle, which is from, and actually the title And It Let It Wiggle came first, and the shadow poem was not in a good place, and I had been working on it for about 2 months and I wasn't happy with it. And then I came up with And She Let It Wiggle for this piece, which is talking about the person, which the shadow piece is also talking about. And when I combined those two things together, it all of a sudden resonated with the shadow needed to be in connection to And She Let It Wiggle. And so then this piece started to kind of explode out. I originally was going to only print it at like 12 feet, but I was talking to my studio assistant and put a number in wrong, and it's 14 feet long. So it's by far the biggest piece I've ever made now. It won't be completely finished until I'm in the actual space, because there'll be a running stitch line across the entire piece of silver thread, kind of mimicking a fishing line running across it. But it's a diptych piece of these different moments at the swimming hole kind of all woven together. And the reason why I'm not showing you a digital mock-up of this piece is because this week I was hit by a thunderstorm and lost my power, and I actually lost the file. So this print is the only print of this piece and that I can do of this piece, because the file that I created it on, which are these these are massive files when I create them. They're 2.5 gigs, so my computer can't technically like save the entire file, so I leave the whole file open and continue to work in it until it's like ready to print, and then I collapse it into like a this has been printed kind of version, which is like less information, but the working file was lost, which is an interesting thing I found out yesterday. But we have it printed and it's done now completely, but I don't have pictures of that. I have been so wrapped up in making this work that I keep trying to take breaks, and I can't. I just work on other things of the show. So the other week I took a day off and I went to waterfalls, and I ended up photographing and taking these 3 photographs alongside a whole lot of other ones. And then I came home, and about 2 days later, I wanted to take a break, and I was like, on my break, I'll look through those pictures. And then I started accidentally making all this print series. So now I'm doing a paper print series as part of the exhibition as well. These shapes that you see are informed by those holy stones. So I've been holding the stones up and shining a flashlight through them, and then tracing that outline onto a piece of paper, and then using that shape to then bring it back to the waterfalls and taking these macro shots of the waterfall as it's falling over the crest at the top of the waterfall and grabbing all this like beautiful like algae and little like worlds being created in here. And so this is called The Quiet That Carved Themselves, and there'll be a series of prints alongside the exhibition. And then lastly, well, I guess this is second to last maybe, the last two pieces I'm still working on this week because I'm a crazy lady, is a piece called As It Slipped Through the Holler. And I really know where I want this piece to, what I want it to feel, but I'm allowing myself to like allow it to transition into a lot of other ways now that I have my material made. But several weeks back, I got this idea for a piece, and I wanted to make a whole lot of hand homemade rope. And so this rope is made from sewing thread. It mimics friendship bracelets. It's very, you know, complex in color and has this rich presence. I feel like they hold this kind of religious, or like they feel precious in some way. And I really wanted to like tap on this dialogue about friendship and how As It Slipped Through the Holler kind of refers to this gray area and this difficulty in queer spaces when you are friends with people who you also might potentially date, and the friend to dating confusion of relating that to something slipping in through an underground stream of like, how did that moment slip past us, or how did our awareness of each other's connection get missed? How did it slip through the holler, you know? So I kind of wanted to make this piece with friendship bracelets, really talking about the friendship of queer spaces and also the messiness of those queer friendships and spaces, the beauty of them as well. Some of the most beautiful friendships. But I'm really letting myself play here. And so that will get done in some way or another for this exhibition. Maybe it in its fullness, it lives outside of this edition of it. At this point, because of those prints and those sculptures, I don't really have space that I have to fill at this point. So I'm just allowing myself to get really free here. I'm finalizing Casting a Line for Desire, which is a fishing line piece, and then the video GIF. So I want to kind of end on this video GIF piece. I'm loosely calling it Touched right now, and I will, oh no, I can't, I don't think I can show you the video of it because I couldn't get it up on a Google Chrome, but you can go onto my Instagram and find a video of it, or you can wait till my exhibition comes out and watch it. But I have several videos of me caressing with my fingers different vaginal looking stones and holes in trees, just natural forms that look vaginal. And I touch them in ways of care, kindness, and for pleasure. They're quite erotic, to be honest. Even filming them when other people are around, I feel a little like, whoa, you guys are watching me do this. And when I showed a sample to the gallery manager, she really, really loved it, but other people connected to the gallery thought that it was not appropriate, that it was too erotic. So it got censored from my exhibition, but because the gallery director loved it so much, we found a workaround. So it's going to live via a QR code that you scan on your phone after you leave the gallery, but once you enter this hidden speakeasy. So this gallery has a frame on the wall that I have a piece I didn't show you guys that's going in that frame, and it functions as a portal to a secret bar. And so one of the reasons why I was really interested in doing a show with this gallery was because of this portal and that connection to the bar space and the dating space, and like how dating in rural spaces for us, like we don't have a gay bar to go to. Like there is a gay bar, but like it's an 18 and up bar, and it's not for lesbians either. It's like very, very male gay ecosystem over there. But like we don't have those brick and mortar spaces. And so to have that front gallery space be this like queer river, for me, it was really talking about what is our gay bar is the river. And so after you go through this portal, you'll be able to scan this QR code and then have these video GIFs of this erotic play with nature on the people's phones. And it wasn't until we found this workaround that I realized like how excited censoring and working around censorship is making me. Like, I know it's gonna be my reality for the next like 10 to however many years of how to work covertly and subtly and around these different issues. But it actually really excited me because it's not going to now be a film that people watch in a gallery, but it's going to be something that's more intimate to them. They're going to have it on their phone. They might not even watch it because they're entering a bar. And then at some point, they're going to come across those videos on their phone, maybe in the car on their way home or laying in bed. And this is exactly where I want to hit them. So I just got really pumped by the censorship. But yeah, I think that's it. This was ChatGPT's recommendation of how I should go through the exhibition. I don't think I did that, but I think I did cover most of the things here. So I'm going to stop sharing and so I can see everyone.
Yes.
We can go into questions. I feel like I talked forever.
No, it went well. Thank you so much. We do have a couple questions / comments.
Awesome.
The first one is from Colette. Colette wrote, I wondered if / how queer ecology inspires your work, and are there any texts that have particular resonance with your work?
Yeah, I feel like everything that you're going to read in books about queer ecology is just things that have been already lived for a really long time, but wasn't recorded or researched by our educated and empowered elite. And I say that from a very Southern perspective. Like, that's what I would say back to that is I don't need any books or research to tell me that my lived truth and queerness in this space thrives in this way. So like, it's a yes and, right? Like, yes, there are books that talk about and describe queer ecologies from a variety of perspectives and queer spaces around the world. I think that there are queer movements around the world in rural spaces. There's Lesbiskdalen in Sweden, which is a lesbian valley that was kind of naturally created from like just a few lesbians moving to this valley, and then other lesbians heard about it, and now it's become a funneling in. Eureka Springs here became that as well. And so I have done a reasonable amount of research, actually reading, have all these books, but they're all, for me, they're more outside of where I'm pulling my research from. The first place I'm pulling my queer research from is from my embodied experience with the landscape. Growing up without electricity or running water and not going to school, I think really positioned me very queerly in the land in a way that my body, ungendered and like not formed into any sexuality, got to experience and explore its connection with the earth. And I'm really pulling from that more than anything else, because while somebody at, an institution might have wrote this book about queer ecologies, did they actually grow up queer in the land? Like, do they have that embodied experience? And will that even give me what I really need to know coming to it?
Yes. Great answer. I don't have recommendations for readings, but I do have recommendation of a film director, pretty famous one in the alternative world. That's Barbara Hammer. I'm dropping her website in the chat. I think she came to, I'll double check, but she was a filmmaker in the 70s, 80s, and things like that. She made a lot of films of particularly lesbians in the natural landscape, and a lot of erotic movies as well with 16mm and Super 8. So here's the website if anyone is interested. And yes, thank you for answering. Victoria has a question of what is the religious pillow? She's not familiar. I'm thinking of the Catholic one, but maybe.
Yeah, there's little Catholic pillows that they'll use for a variety of other things. You've probably seen this most readily in marriage ceremonies with the wedding ring pillow, that the ring bearer carries the rings on a little pillow. those little pillows, they are created for a lot of religious items to set on and sit on, especially in Catholicism, which I think is like
Yes.
probably the religion I'm pulling and referencing from the most. Both of my parents were raised Catholic, so
Mhm.
it's kind of embedded in there. And I also think Catholicism is the most gay of all the religions. They just are so flamboyant.
Yes, of the Western ones for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm. Hillary said, not sure if it's a question, but she's super curious about finding compelling and finds compelling, sorry, the two themes of finding self-love and a nurturing support through the landscape, slash stepping through the wild water, as well as being in conversation with ChatGPT. I think maybe for me particularly, because it's everything is so related to nature, I'm wondering if you could just expand a little bit more about what ChatGPT is doing. I know personally because you told me, but I think it would be interesting as well.
Yeah. So I'll be talking about this more in my class about how to work with ChatGPT as your studio assistant. So you can get back to the work that only you can make. I know that there is a lot of tension around AI in connection with nature. And I want to subtly remind everybody that this is an energy problem. It's not actually has anything to do with AI. But I hope that the fact that AI is here, it's not going to be able to be stopped. And it is energy hungry, that it will force us to reform our energy systems, which have needed to be resituated for a very long time. And now the technology is there for green energies. There's already AI versions running off of solar. And so it's just like, yeah, energy shift has to be made, but AI is only one area where that has to happen. And so within that, I'm not situating myself as being like, oh, I feel like this is in contention with the environment. I honestly think that AI kind of points such a big finger at the problem of energy that I'm hoping that it will help us reposition funds and actually change our energy system, which is just what we need to do. So I have been working with ChatGPT and AI not as an image generator at all, but as a brainstormer and mirror, essentially. How can I feed it things and then get things back and be able to work through ideas and theories and make connections far quicker than I can with just myself? So it was really looking at it as a process of how could I just have a conversation? Because every time I have a conversation with an artist, it helps me develop my art further. And so how could I load up this AI with all the information that I wished I could have some collaborator, or it started as me saying to my sister, I needed to find a religious girlfriend who knew a lot about the Bible so we could rewrite scripture and find why the Bible is actually very gay. Because I basically like had this realization that Jesus had two dads, and that like essentially it is all about like modeling ourselves on this first family and how the first family was like what God wanted every family to be like, and that is a queer family. And so it's just like, okay, well, let's like peel this all back because we already found like one lie, just one thing that we're saying is something that it's not, right? It's dressed up in linguistic drag again. It's the Bible saying this is a heteronormative family when Mary, Joseph, and Jesus is ignoring the fact that God is part of that relationship. He's ever present and them, and like it's the most queer thing in the world. And so being able to like have one of these realizations and then go to ChatGPT and give it that example and ask it to look for similar things to happen again. That's something I can't compete. Like I can't access that kind of expertise or knowledge. I would have had to read the whole Bible, go to freaking biblical school and study it. Like I wasn't raised in this religion. I was raised in a weird amalgamation of other things that's much more easy to describe under Ozark witchcraft than under Christianity. But Christianity and Catholicism was part of my upbringing, even though it wasn't part of my personal religion because it was so embedded in this landscape. And so ChatGPT became this point in which I realized I could access all this knowledge that I didn't have, and also position its perspective alongside me, so then it could help me just sift through things so I could continue to find these nuggets of gold amongst all the silt. And I think that is really what working with AI is you're working with, I like to like basically position them as an intern coming into your studio. You can ask them to bring you certain research, but sometimes they bring you bad research. And so part of it is about like knowing what's good and knowing what's bad and knowing what you actually want to get and having a high bar of quality for yourself. Because like I said, there's this third poem that I'm not reading today. I've worked on that for 5 hours in connection with AI. Like when I'm saying I'm writing poems with AI, I'm not sitting down and just telling it to write me a poem. Those poems suck. They are garbage. Like to get a good poem out of AI is a continuous give and take, is a conversation that goes about like, these are the emotions I want to express. These are the metaphors we're working with. Help me pull these out and connect these together. And it gives me just samples. And then I'm able to pull from those samples what resonates, because it doesn't understand in the same way that you're able to understand, but it can provide and give you and deliver you things at a speed that's just unmatched. So it just makes the research deeper, like way deeper.
Yes, thank you so much. Tricia says, I'm wondering about how you think about the edges of your fabric works and how that fits in with your themes and context. How are they finished, i.e., do they reference quilting in any way? And the hand stitching reminds Tricia of pulling together individuals to form relationships and communities of care and relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll see two different types of edging that I use a lot. I'll sometimes fold over the image over the edge and stitch on the back where the edge is really smooth. And another thing I do is I cut the image right off at the edge, and then I loop stitch over it to create this like kind of dippling effect. But what I'm actually doing is I'm just securing the edge so it doesn't unravel. But it creates this texture along the surface that I like. Trisha, I gotta just say, like, about the edges, it's a feeling more than anything. It's a what does the piece need in those final stages. Sometimes I know, and sometimes it's just something I didn't necessarily plan to work around. So back in grad school, when I was doing these prints, they got really precious to me, and I had to depressurize them because I'm like, you can print another, like play with it, like use it. And that's when I really started to allow myself to print something, cut it up, and still use it again and be like, oh, that edge is a little close, but we'll just finish that edge differently. And it's a negotiation with your process, right? Like, I think it's like, okay, so that brings me back to this time that I was standing in Venice in this cathedral, looking at these old textiles, and the old textiles had been like repaired by other people with slightly different greens and slightly different purples over hundreds of years. I was looking at this textile and I was like, not only is this textile beautiful, but all these little hands that have come across history is what makes it so rich. And so I started to go back into my studio and be like, how can I have that effect by just letting the process be evident? And so some of my edges are just by letting the process be evident. I cut that, and maybe that wasn't going to originally be the edge. Maybe I originally was going to fold that over, but I either wasn't thinking or I was planning something else or something shifted, and you just work with it and go with it in that different manner.
Yes, I love intuitive practices, as I have been like trying stitching, not photos themselves, but the negatives. And I don't know anything about stitching besides what my grandma thought when I was a preteen. So yeah, a lot of it for me is figuring out as we go.
Yeah, that brings me to the other part of that, which was the hand stitching has like a huge history in activism and feminism and queer practices.
Yes.
Stitch and bitch circles are probably like your most prominent like cultural reference to these. But hand stitching and sewing was like kind of covers for gatherings of women for a really long time. And, you know, when you are actually stitching, you're doing an act of repair, but you're also piercing something again and again and again. And so there's something through that like repetition that becomes ritualistic and becomes like meditative. And it's through that that I'm like the method of making this work is also like integral to that, like what I'm talking about in it. Cause like a lot of that is like talking about repair and healing and how pain is necessary in all of those practices, right? You have to look at what hurts to heal from it. You have to literally feel it. So yeah, anyways.
We do have one question that is more technical from Colette. If we want to sign up for your ChatGPT workshop as a member, how we do that? Yeah. She tried signing up via the website, but says she wasn't eligible. I think you should be able to sign up as a member, but I'll let you.
Oh, it's just a different link, Colette. It's the annoying way that this functions and doesn't allow me to. It's just silly. It's the silliest thing I've ever seen in my life. But I'm getting you the link right now. People who are members of the Alternative Arts School have to use what is called an internal link to access these courses and sign up. And so I email these to you in the alumni newsletter, but I know that they're hard to disentangle from the one for your friends. So your friends need a different link than this. But this is the link that you can go ahead and use. So yeah, please sign up. We've got already a couple of folks signed up and should be a good class.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes,
we have time for one.
Oh, go ahead.
We have one last. We have time for one last question. So Hillary says, "Thank you, Amber. I have been using it similarly. I'm assuming ChatGPT, though she's not sure how it will work into her art, but it has been quite fascinating and often hysterical mirror. And I kind of think of it as everyone responding to me, or everyone who has had any sort of influence within it."
Yeah. I would say about like AI in general, you're having conversations with the collective conscious as it was captured over the last 10 to 15 years of our existence online. That's just insanely interesting. Like, no matter how that information has been manipulated and chosen by a bunch of like white middle-class, middle-aged men from coastal cities, that's interesting. Like, both of these things are incredibly interesting from a conceptual point of view. Just outside of that, outside of your own practice, when I work with AI, I definitely feel like I am working with a past version of myself and my whole global community of the moment I am alive. And you know, humans have never been able to have a conversation with that before. And so I think that it is something that holds a lot of power. And in that, we can either decide to not understand that power, or we can understand that power alongside other people who are going to understand that power.
Exactly. Well said. And thank you so much, Amber, for this talk and for, sharing your work.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for making it. And I'll be uploading this recording as soon as I have it. So hopefully by today, the end of the day, and you'll be able to watch it for the first time if you're watching now, or rewatch it as you would like.
Oh,
thank you.
And Trisha, yes, the universe that's conscious. Yes. Okay, I'll shut up. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming, and thanks for all your lovely comments in the chat. Show opens June 7th. I'll be posting about it online, and would love to talk to you guys more about this work as it continues past the show. See y'all.
Yes. Thank you.